Hey, Joni here. In today's video I will talk about why Elon Musk is a danger to Europe. I've talked a lot about Elon Musk lately. Musk and his South African oligarch gang have managed to buy themselves into power in the US. They have way too much power and use that to push their interests. As billionaires, they will put their business interests before American interests. You don't become that wealthy by putting other people's interests before yours. But at the end of the day, I'm not American and I cannot decide for the US. Americans can decide for themselves and I can comment on it, but it's not really my business at the end of the day. But when Musk starts interfering in European politics, then it becomes my business. And he has been doing that a lot lately. Musk's interference in European politics is not comparable to a private individual giving his opinion. Musk is the richest and potentially most powerful man in the world. He owns X and that gives him a lot of power. He gets to influence what content you see there. Because of that, he can have a huge influence on our elections. And he does not have the best interest of Europe in mind. I will talk about how we can limit his influence in Europe, but before that I will talk about what I believe are the reasons why he's interfering in European politics. Musk is the richest and likely most powerful man in the world. However, he has a lot of ambitions and dreams that he has not reached yet. Musk wants to be much richer and much more powerful than he is now. He also wants to mark history. To do that, he needs the US to get along with China and Russia. He needs China for its market and labor, and he needs China and Russia for their natural resources. He produces a lot of Teslas in China. Because of that, he will always stop the US from confronting China and Russia, and that explains why he never criticizes China and Russia nowadays, even if he criticizes the US and its allies all the time. He's a huge hypocrite on this. He will always appease China and Russia because that is in his personal interest. And as I said earlier, he will always put his business interests before American interests. It is actually in the interests of the US to confront its enemies, and that includes China and Russia. But Elon Musk does not want that to happen. And here comes the reason why he's interfering in European elections. The last thing Musk wants is a united and strong Europe. A united and strong Europe could regulate X. That would make him way less influential than he is now. European regulation could also cost him a lot of money. And a strong and united Europe could stand up to China, Russia, and even the US. A strong and united Europe would never let the US dictate its foreign policy, trade policy, or regulations in general. And that is something Musk wants the US to be able to do. Musk wants a weak and divided Europe, because a weak and divided Europe cannot regulate him and his companies. Because of that, Musk is endorsing pro-China and pro-Russia parties in Europe. A big part of Europe's far right is unfortunately pro-China and pro-Russia. Musk does not care one bit about rapes in Europe. He helped a rapist become the president of the United States. He also keeps defending Andrew Tate. His own father had a child with his stepdaughter. There are tons of sex scandals that Musk never talks about. He only seems to care about those that involve immigrants. He may be a racist, but he clearly doesn't do it because he cares or because he wants to help the victims. He does it to get the far right in power in Europe. The far right is against the EU and it is pro-China and pro-Russia in many European countries. That is exactly what Musk needs, and that explains his interference in European politics. And that is something we need to stop. The best way to do that is through regulation. The EU already has a lot of regulation in place, but it does not always enforce it properly. The EU, in my opinion, needs more regulation on social media. And that does not necessarily mean more moderation or censorship. Many believe that regulation means censorship or moderation, but it's not actually true. There are many ways to regulate without doing any of those. Regulating social media can mean asking for ID verification from users, for example. With ID verification and with a limited number of accounts per person, we could limit the number of bots. No one honest would oppose that. We could also have algorithmic accountability. Platforms would have to be more transparent about what type of content their algorithms push forward. We could also force platforms to, for example, allow its users to opt out of certain types of content. Finally, we could also ask for more transparency on the funding of ads. None of these examples of regulation go against freedom of speech, and none of them include any form of censorship. However, they would all help fight against foreign interference, and they would also make social media much more enjoyable. Many of you talked about ID verification in the comments of my previous video. Do you have any other ideas of regulation that I haven't talked about in this video or in the previous one? If you do, please write them in the comments. Well, this was it for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit like and subscribe, and see you in the next one.